growing weary of running from room to room, practicing one-tooth insurance-driven dentistry? Then stay tuned for the latest episode of The Lionhearted, where Dr. Stephen Rasner will hand you the blueprint for what many call the gold standard of general practice dentistry.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Steve Rasner, and welcome to 2021, my first fresh podcast of the new year. I'm pretty excited. I'll tell you why in a second. But thanks to all of you who continue to tune in. In fact, one reason I'm excited, and if I look a little haggard and my voice doesn't sound quite as strong, it's because I'm doing this after a work day. And I really like doing it after work days because I think I bring you such fresh, relevant information that happened to me these days. So you're better off listening to this one than looking at me. Not that that's why you would tune in anyway. But first, let me thank everybody that continues to tune in. And even today, which is early first week of January, we had more downloads today, I think, than I've ever had in one day. So thanks to everybody from United States to Canada to the United Kingdom to all over South Africa lately, India. It's pretty cool that many of you continue to use bits and pieces of information I give you. And look, I'm not a big guy on resolutions and, it's 2021. Let's do this or let's do that. Because it seems a little hokey to me. But it does work, at least for a while. And I'm going to do that with you a little bit because I've only been back 2 days. So some things have happened that I'm dying to share with you. I got to be honest, I started out with 2 just amazingly productive days. But let me get to all the things I want to share. And the basis of the theme of this podcast, this first true podcast of 2021, is going to be the payoff of training. Don't turn this off. It is too important to how you're going to spend these next 52 weeks. I mean, I've always known how important it is, but it has been blasted in my face in the last opening 2 days of this year. So much so that I went to the trouble of finding 2 of my favorite quotes. So please, just bear with me for a minute. I think you'll like this. The first quote is, "I hated every minute of training, but I said, don't quit. Suffer now and live the rest of your life as a champion." That was Muhammad Ali. And the other, just one more quote. Just try to remember these. I think you go back to these when you don't feel like doing something, when you don't feel like scheduling that course, or you're too busy to train. This one goes back many years, and I used to follow it all the time. When you're not practicing, remember, someone somewhere is practicing. And when you meet them, they will win. I love that, man. And I got to tell you, those of you that have not heard my whole journey, or have just checked into a podcast here, a podcast there, the only reason you're even listening to me right now, or ever, every one of the 350 plus presentations I did in however many states of the United States, in however many countries I got to travel to, every single thing that happened to me, good, professionally in dentistry, happened because I trained above and beyond anything that was expected of me. I mean, why would that be a surprise to anybody? So I have to tell you, like a light bulb went on to me. I wasn't even going to cut a podcast until this weekend. And I'm tired. I'm sure those of you that are watching this, I'm looking at myself on the video right now, can see it. I don't care. I don't care how I look. You need to hear this. Here's the thing. We've all kind of got out of optimal velocity. And when I say velocity, I don't mean going fast in your practice. I mean doing all the things that are necessary to have a sustaining, productive, and satisfying dental practice. That's what I mean. I mean leading your staff. I mean engaging with your hygiene recall patients, remembering all the protocols so the whole thing comes together and works for you. That's what I'm talking about. Well, it all just became so evident of the benefit of it just being back a couple days. I want to tell you a couple things that I want you to take away from this podcast this week. And some of them are going to seem maybe, I don't know, contradictory. They're not intended to be. One is, I think it's important for you, especially those of you that are so driven that you do not like to take extended breaks from your practice. Please believe me, from someone who made that error for many, many years of his career. Taking a break is a good thing. And when I say a break, I don't mean a 3-day weekend. I mean like 7 days, 10 days, maybe even 14. That may be pushing it for some of you with young practices. So let's focus in here. Those D students listening to me that are in D3 or D4, you remember this podcast. Those of you that are out, that haven't been even a dentist for 1 year, I want you to remember this. Those of you who've been in practice just a couple of years, and certainly those of you that feel like you hit a wall, you get burned out, man. In the best practices, I can't imagine a general dentist having a situation that I have weekly that could be more optimal as a general dentist. Various procedures I get to do, challenging cool things, appreciative patients, long-term staff, right? I was burning out at the end of 2020. I'm not convinced it was the shutdown from COVID. I guess that contributed to some degree. I'm telling you, at the end of 2020, I felt run down. And I gave myself an extended break. And it was interesting. Before I came back, because I do a lot of challenging procedures, I was anxious about coming back. I was. So here's my takeaway for tonight. Force yourself when you treatment plan your year. That's what I said. When you treatment plan 2021, treatment plan some time off. Throw in a couple 4-day weekends. Definitely throw yourself in a week off a couple times. Don't poo-poo this. You will thank me for this. First of all, you won't lose the yearly production you think you're going to lose. You're just not. You know, that's why I went to practice. I don't want to get too helter-skelter with you, but I remember the days I practiced 5 days. You know how I ended up going 5 to 4? Because I was taking so many courses in the 80s and 90s that whenever I would take a course that required me to be there on a Friday or end a Thursday, I scheduled differently that week. And I did it out of fear. I didn't do it because I thought I was so smart. I did it because I was fearful that my productivity and my collections would suffer on the 3-day or 4-day versus the 5-day week. What I learned is that it forced me to be maximally efficient with how I scheduled. So I learned to schedule nothing but productive procedures from 9 in the morning till 3, and then from 3 to whatever I want to do. Usually it's an hour these days. I'll do what I call non-productive procedures. It might be a redo of something. I had a guy in my office today. I did a 7 through 10, beautiful zirconia, layered on the facial crowns last July, and the incisal, one of them chipped. I missed the occlusion. It's my fault. That's a non-pro procedure. I don't hesitate for a second on that patient. Of course I wouldn't do that. I would think most of you wouldn't. So that gets put into my schedule at 3 o'clock somewhere because it's not new production. It's something I have to make good on to be honorable, to keep goodwill, to do the right thing, all of those things. So I'm telling you, this is why over a given year, you'll just schedule more efficiently and carefully on the weeks based around that you'll be taking off. Please, if you haven't done it before, I know some of you listening were just like me. And you wouldn't dare take a whole week off because your production and your collections would fall. And maybe you lived too far over your head, like yours truly, many earlier years of my career. Seriously. It's not proud to get up here in front of this camera and admit all my mistakes, but what good would it do for you if I didn't tell you that part of the story? So that maybe you can early on change your personal protocols. So here's what I used to do. I would literally, at this part of the year, and often in August, I would plan out the courses that I would take. And I would select them. And I would put deposits on them. By the way, I also did it for my front desk team. I also did it for my hygienist team and for my dental assistants. Literally, I would select courses. Of course, with them, I would give them choices and discuss it. And the reason you do that is it creates an incentive. First of all, everybody in the scheduling department knows months ahead of time that week you're only going to be there 3 days. And if you paid for the course already, there's no excuse for you to get a month out from the course and say, things haven't been very good. I can't afford that. Why am I talking so much about this? Because the thing that slammed me in the face early, when I say early, I've been back 2 days. And when I give you numbers on these podcasts, it's never, ever because I think I'm great or something. That is so not in my DNA. Please believe that. I give them to you because they amaze me. I'm back 2 days in my office, and we collected close to 80K. Collected. How did that happen? And my number one treatment planning / financial coordinator isn't even back, which is scary. That's, it's the person I trust to present a 5-figure case to a patient. So how does it happen? Here's how it happens. I've always wondered how I could convey to many of you that ask me, in the case presentation room, what goes down there? Why am I so good at converting patients that may have called for a broken tooth or a chipped filling or isolated pain on one tooth? How do you take that patient and convert them into an appreciative patient of complete dentistry, as Pete Dawson used to say? And the only answer is that you train yourself in so many disciplines. You become, pardon the analogy, a very, very proficient pilot. I'm piloting the different kinds of work I may suggest to a given patient. And I can grab from different layers of instrumentation I have because I've been so well trained. It just comes to me naturally as a result, not naturally. It comes to me as a result of spending so many hours in so many great leaders of dentistry's offices and learning the things you need to learn. So again, I'll say to the D students in dental school still, or those of you early in your career, this is one area that I would borrow. I wouldn't tell you to borrow a lot of money to buy a house in the first 10 years of your career. But if you think you love dentistry, if you feel passionate when you're with patients that you're recommending stuff to, and then you take them through the process, and then they come back in 4 months or 6 months, and there's this amazing connection, and they're proud to be your patient. Are you kidding me? Yeah, I've been doing this 40 years, and I still feel that. I felt it today. And it's all the result of training. So what is it I would train in? If I could be with you right now, the first thing I would tell you to do, and I'm sorry that I never stopped saying this to you, is that I would get my sedation permit in whatever state you're in. All you got to do tomorrow is call up, or have somebody call. Don't you do it. Have somebody from your office call the Board of Dentistry, which could be very slow in their response, or Google it and see what the requirements are in your state to give a patient more than one drug that will alter their state of consciousness. And you get the full sedation protocol from me if you write to me. I love giving it out. It defined my career, and it will define your career for two reasons. One, it makes dentistry easy. And two, it has an incredible, predictable outcome on an enormous percentage of your patients. And thus it becomes very easy to market. And no, I don't even charge my patients for it. I don't. I find it almost amusing, or certainly peculiar, that patients appreciate that we don't charge them for sedation, yet they'll gladly pay 5 figures, significant 5 figures, for treatment plans. And that's not really even training. It just takes up time. Certainly it takes time and repetitiveness to become good at endo and the other things that I'm going to allude to. But here's what I would do, and here's what I did do to this day. I trained significantly. The only one I may be speaking out of hand on right now, as I tell you what I would be looking at, is I did most of my Crown and Bridge training with the Spear Institute. It wasn't the Spear Institute when I went. It was Frank Spear's office and John Coy's office. But unless somebody corrects me, I still have no reason to believe that the Spear Institute in Arizona isn't an awesome place to train for that. I don't know how you can be a general dentist and not be incredibly proficient at the facially generated treatment plan, as Frank used to call it. And you can take 1 or 2 of their courses per year, I don't know, for the next 10 years. I did the training in about 5 years. But if I had it to do over, I've thought about doing it over, by the way, even though I took it years and years ago. I also think it's mandatory for you to become proficient at some level of endodontics. Let me tell you why I'm going to connect this to all the dots in a minute. So I kind of gave up on endo for 10 years. I don't even remember how I got back into it. The last time I had done root canal on a routine basis in my office was before rotary endodontics. I don't know how far back that goes. But somehow I just rediscovered endo treatment through that. Retrained. I really don't do molars because I do so much, as most of you know, surgery, that I just literally don't have the time to do everything. But I think it's an incredible practice builder, and it's too easy to do really excellent results to not incorporate that in your general practice. So it's a sedation permit, crown and bridge, which you might spread out over 10 years. And understand when I say crown and bridge, there's other branches off this tree. If you're so willing to participate in occlusion, in materials, it goes on and on and on. And actually that institute, the Spear Institute, may cover all those things. I've said some level of root canal. And of course, most of you know by now that I'm a big advocate of you incorporating surgical procedures into your practice, which you can do and learn live in my office. We teach, just to be clear, which is not why I'm saying all this to you. I don't care if you went to somewhere else. If you can find another institute where you can train on live patients, because to become proficient at surgery, you can't learn it on models. You can learn to suture on models, but you really can't learn to extract teeth, and you really can't learn to place implants on models and take that right into an operatory. But you can in my office, and again, it's not why I'm telling you this. Check out the Rasner Institute while I'm at it and see when our courses are. We only give a few courses in the spring and a couple courses in the fall, and I limit it to like not that many doctors, under 10. So that's a start that you could train at for 10 years. When I find myself in front of a patient, think about this for a minute, and it's why I'm sharing this with you in my first live podcast of 2021. I said it earlier, but I want to put it all together now. I don't care what the patient came in with, an atrophic mandible and a history of inability to wear a denture, a limited number of teeth. So wait, let me take it one by one. An atrophic mandible. Well, I've trained significantly, as you could, in implant dentistry. By the way, I've also trained significantly in complete denture fabrication. So I'm pretty prepared to talk about both. A patient with a limited number of teeth who, for whatever reason, can have, and that could include financial, can have implant dentistry. Well, I've trained significantly in partial denture designs, or the combination of partial denture with implants on those patients that do have a broader budget. Or a patient that comes in that needs a significant smile makeover. None of us get enough of those, correct? And while I'm talking to the patient, I am certain of one thing, that I come off as an authority on what to do when. Meaning, what is the right thing to recommend to this patient? Well, that's based on what they want, and it's based on what my diagnostic information provides for me, and it's based on their budget. But if you go back to the early podcast, it's always based around me doing a complete exam. And my version of a complete exam is pretty consistent. I'm not going to go into it now, but there's many, many prior podcasts on this. And I'm just saying to you, it becomes so easy to steer the vehicle, whether it's an airplane or a complicated car, because I have all this data up in my brain from the years of training. I didn't hate every minute of training like Muhammad Ali did. In fact, what I would bet most of you would find, other than the time away from your family, is that you would enjoy it, because you meet like-minded colleagues, and you can't help but come away with a basket of caveats of how they do this or how they do that. I think the most dangerous thing you could be doing is adding to the already existing isolation of being a dentist by taking courses just online. I understand. I'd rather you do that than nothing. But that's almost saying I'd rather a patient have a lower full denture than nothing. And I don't really believe that. I don't know how much better a lower full denture on an atrophic mandible is than nothing. Seriously. The cornerstone of the Lionhearted dentist is a lifetime dedicated to training. Now, I didn't tell you to do it at the expense of your family. I think you should also treatment plan while you're doing this time off. It leads you, you don't lose the training. You have that in you. Just like riding a bike, you have that in you forever. So it's not something you're renting. It's a lifetime purchase. Please don't blow it off. Think about what your year was like in 2020, besides the obvious that was bad for all of us. Think about going forward. What's going to make it different? And there's a million concepts we talk about on this Lionhearted podcast that you have to implement. You can't be an amazing clinician and have a dysfunctional front desk team. You can't have a system in place for how you receive new patients and take them through the journey. It all counts. But at the end of the day, being able to provide rock solid recommendations because you have it up in here, and as soon as you start training, you're going to start having more success in case presentations, of which I intend to revisit this year because it's the number one cornerstone that affects how you spend each day. So the takeaway this week, take some time off. Force yourself to do it. Do not become a victim that you can't take off or your production and receipts will go down. They'll actually go up. You'll be a better dentist when you get back to the office. And treatment plan, as in pay it ahead of time. Plan it in the schedule. They should know in the next month what you're taking in the next 6 months. And if you want any personal recommendations on anything I'm qualified to speak upon, I will gladly give them to you if you write to me at drrasner@aol.com. I'm here for you this year. I can't wait to hear from so many of you and tell me that it was your breakthrough year, as I heard in 2020 even from many of you. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week on the Lionhearted Dentist.